The Foothills Unitarian Church gap year. What? No Foothills for a year? The church building is closing? Seriously? You can't do that. You can't. But you can, can't you? Rats. What will we do? A whole year of no easy connection to our fellow congregants? No shelter from the storm? I need that shelter. The shelter that those Sunday services, homilies, and hymns give me. I need to find that shelter, and I doubt I'm the only one. Should I reach out, or should I create something to offer? Duh, I'm so much more creative when I'm stimulated by others. So here goes an email to my Wellspring braiding sweetgrass peeps. Hello, Wellspring braiders. Our Foothills families need us. Let's head for the hills. We need to create a year of sanity. I found a large cabin in the Snowies we can have for a week. It's not Scott and Jennifer's, but it's not far away. It's sort of rustic, deep in the woods, but accessible. It has electricity, a fridge, some running water, a stove, and a practically walk-in fireplace. Okay, so it has an outhouse, but it's not that far a walk, and the brilliant night sky will illuminate any midnight dashes back and forth. Come on, we can do this. We need to create a plan for being there for our people. Some of us have spent 4 years preparing for this. All of us have had at least 10 months of prep. We have the goods in our souls and our hearts. Let's crack open those hearts and launch those souls and draw a map for the next 11 and a half months of braiding the gap year. No, it won't be all on Zoom, but we will use Zoom to connect since the pandemic has folks so well trained. What else will we do? Well, that's what we create in this retreat. My wheels have been churning. Well, they were at 3 a.m. last night when visions of meal trains and drive-by hollers and masked Volksmarches and phone trees enabled me to finally fall asleep early this morning. But we need more ideas. Please send me your immediate RSVP. Time's a wasting. We leave in 36 hours. We carpool. We need a food sign-up. 7 breakfasts. Bring your own lunch and snacks. 7 dinners. And please consider teaming up for that. BYO wine and spirits, it's allowed. Music. We have to have music. Sarah E., you have to come. Boy, this day with the church email started so badly, but now I am stoked. Our faith is calling us on, and we can and will respond. Listen, listen, braiders. We now have to carry the weight of the church on our hearts and our souls. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
We learned so much from our failures in the big one. It was the 4th pandemic of the century and the one that changed us the most. We brought on our Jubilee experience in part because we didn't believe that sabbatical was necessary or even possible. That was a hard lesson learned. We still haven't hit critical mass in our willingness to prevent future pandemics, but the changes that we have been able to agree on are slowing the pace of outbreaks dramatically, and I doubt we will need a Jubilee level reset again. We have learned to lean into the cycles of expansion and contraction, to have a healthier relationship to growth and rest. Healthcare, workplaces, and schools were the biggest things that had to change permanently if we were going to ride out the waves of outbreaks. We needed a completely new paradigm at the national level, and thankfully we made that happen. We uncoupled access to healthcare from the workplace. We replaced the health insurance industry with universal preventative health, public health, and mental health services. We finally freed ourselves from the 40-hour work week and created equitable dual income structures for parenting and a more balanced life for everyone. Seeing how productive working from home had been in the great pandemic and how the new public health measures virtually eliminated the ordinary seasonal illnesses, we were able to negotiate a more balanced work-life culture, though we did have to bump up the ideal of a 4-hour workday to 5 hours. And not having to offer health insurance as an expensive benefit helped employers manage the small decrease in productivity that shorter workdays created, while still offering the same pay. Parents adjusted to the compromise, taking alternating 5-hour shifts, and daycare needs were dramatically reduced. That freed up even more people to find jobs in the expanded healthcare sectors. Our sabbatical years, when we do have another outbreak, continue to show us who our essential workers are. And we do a much better job now of protecting and appreciating them for all the ways that they hold our society in its familiar shape. Learning, of course, is so different now. Schools are places for check-ins and social engagement, sports and arts. They pivot pretty easily to our sabbaticals when they are needed. The great pandemic freed us from our fears of technology and screens, and we began to understand how learning happens deeply and organically through play and exploration and curiosity when it is allowed space to arise naturally. We saw how much better and deeper kids learned without pressure, with clever, fun, gamified approaches. Not to mention, we finally let go of archaic pieces of curriculum. Some of us are old enough to remember the lost arts of cursive writing, long division, and diagramming sentences. We have learned to really savor other old ways, now that they are not always available. The stadium events, the transcontinental flights, the big indoor venues. The intimate gatherings mean so much more to us, too, now that we have to periodically forego them. The dinner parties, the indoor restaurants, the house concerts. Remember how, when they finally declared eradication, we all gathered in the streets with our neighbors at 8 p.m. night after night after night? We sang songs together. We'd share lyrics and nobody worried about singing off key because it was all so beautiful. I still tear up every time I think about it. On a personal level, I know that not everyone takes the sabbatical years willingly. We don't all slow down and create silence for our inner voices to be heard and to redefine how we are spending our time and our energy. We don't all feel ready for the healing that comes from allowing our shadowed feelings and experiences to emerge and to be integrated. But that's okay. As we've learned, we only need to achieve a certain critical mass to manifest a full transformation. I think we do have a widespread understanding that sabbaticals are when we refill. We tend to our homes and our closest connections. We take care of our bodies, and some of us, our souls. However we engage with these sabbaticals, they are when we get our most creative and vital work done. We don't just catch up. We reimagine ourselves. I don't think we would ever have made these huge personal and collective changes if the pandemic hadn't dragged on for as long as it did and forced us to pay attention and change our ways. I have come to appreciate these sabbatical years as well, and I hope that we never stop having some form of them, even once we've done the environmental and social justice work we need to do to stop new viruses from jumping species. I now have hope that we can truly do this work because enough of us have woken up and made deeply impactful changes already, changes I would never have dreamed possible once.
A gap, a time between. Deep down, we knew we needed a break from the past. In our hearts, a terrible tension between the transformation we needed and the fear of change. From time to time, individuals moved bravely forward, but together, our collective reticence was like slogging through jello that held us back, that slowed our progress to a quiver. Now the jello has been washed away, leaving us naked and raw and unprotected. Discontinuity. A break from incremental steps that felt like an exhausted climb up the slippery sand, which slides further and further down behind us with every step. A time to stop looking at our sliding feet and raise our gaze, to see the larger landscape of our need and raise our eyes to the path ahead. Interruption. Stop striving mightily for minutia long enough to feel the loss of what we truly cherish, to grieve what's gone and gain perspective on what's really important. A chance to take our collective breath, to gather our strength and focus, to dedicate ourselves to what truly matters, an opportunity to look inward, to rediscover our values, to recall the essential vibrancy of life and health and love, to remember who we are. In our time apart, we come together. We aspire. We reach for a better life, for a better world. We stop making it worse and begin healing. We realize the futility of the fear of the loss of normalcy and embrace the freedom that comes from having to create a new normal. Our tentative movements to avoid upsetting the apple cart become lost in a sea of applesauce. As we heal, we need to build a new cart, a world that affirms and supports us, in which we support one another and the systems underneath. A year to breathe and feel and mourn and heal and regroup. When have we ever had such a chance? When will we ever have such a chance again? Intentionality, determination. The arc of history is long. The arc of evolution is longer by far. It's not gradual and incremental. Rather, it progresses through punctuated equilibrium, in which long periods of stagnation are interrupted by sharp, short shocks of retrenchment and reorganization and renewal. There is no going back to the world as it was. The gap is here and now. The future demands new intentionality. The work will be hard. Power, carbon, money, education, employment, healthcare, justice, climate, refugees. Our task is not less daunting, but rather compounded by our need to rebuild from this chaos. The rest of our lives, the lives of our children and their children. We will create better days. Yet now we breathe, we gather our strength, we rest, we reflect, we rise. Mind the gap.
We said goodbye and went to our houses and our beds and burrowed into sleep, cozy and warm, nestled amongst the pillows and the covers and the ones we loved. The blankets around us a chrysalis while we rearranged ourselves from the inside out. That year we slept. Outside, the earth moved ever on, and when we woke up there were vines on the windows, and the grass growing in the cracks between the pavers became a forest. And there was a fine layer of dust on the world, and we left our footprints bare in weaving patterns across it. And when, for the first time after an age of hibernation, we saw the world and the people anew, our eyes were wide and bright, and the air was sweet, and the sun was warm. And we reveled in touching, hugging, sitting close beside one another and catching each other up on our dreams. And we were all different, the same way a butterfly is from a caterpillar, all the same parts, but rearranged. And like us, in late summer the cicadas emerged and climbed trees that were a year taller, a year wider, and they sang and we listened with new ears, transmuted.